Do not buy Outriders for console. Hello everybody, my name is Billy the Squid, and typically I have a camera set up for doing voiceovers over top of stuff like this, but I needed you all to see specifically what each and every issue is with this game, and I did not want to act as a distraction, so this is my first impression review, whatever you want to call it, of the Outriders demo. I have played it both on PC and PS5, and I can honestly say, without a doubt, do not even think about getting this game on console if it ships in the current condition that it is in. And honestly, I'm to the point of not even being able to recommend it for PC, but I'll get into that here very soon. So, Outriders, if you are not familiar with what it is a game that is being published by Square Enix and being created by the developers that created the game Bulletstorm. It is a looter shooter, third-person shooter, has cover systems similar to Gears of War, has ability systems similar to Destiny and Anthem, and it is supposed to be a kind of post-apocalyptic looter shooter set on a planet. You are a super soldier that has been bestowed godlike power by an anomaly, and you are trying to bring civilization and Earth back from the brink after Earth was destroyed and the last remnants of the human race are set fighting against each other on this new planet that found a lot more hostility than they were expecting. So, is the game any good? Well, first and foremost, I will be showing you exclusively footage from the PS5 version since I feel it is the worst of the group, and I do not want to sugarcoat anything whenever I'm giving these kinds of first impressions. If I have the tech, I'm going to use it, and I do not want another cyberpunk style situation happening. And while this might not be on the same level of bad as cyberpunk, the differences between the PC version and the PS5 version, at least on a technical standpoint, are actually mind-boggling. So you first load in, you get into the character creator. It's very simplistic. There are very few options. I don't know if they're going to be adding more with the final version of the game, but I sure as God hope so, because there's only so many edgy haircuts and beard outfits that we can get on our boys and girls. They all look very generic. They all look very the same. And honestly, that is the story of Outriders to a T in my book. The generic reeks in this game. Nothing about what happens in this tutorial that's supposed to get you invested actually made me feel like I gave a damn about any of the characters that I was coming up against, any of the world building type stuff, and honestly, I didn't give a shit about the Outrider character that you're supposed to be playing as. All of it very much feels like a generic sci-fi shooter, Halo meets Avatar type world. It all just feels very bland. Nothing pops out, nothing screams unique, nothing makes me think of this over any of the other type games. At least Destiny had a unique setting and place for it, to the way that it bounced between the planets and stuff. That was at least interesting. This just feels like Earth 2.0 with some freaky storms and hyena cows. The first thing I want to get into technical-wise is the graphics, and as you can see here, the graphics leave a lot to be desired on the console version. I did on the PC version notice very much that it's just an improvement. It just looks significantly better on the PC version. The PS5 port is downgraded in so many spots, and again, I don't know if this is going to be the final product, but with 1 month out before the full game releases, I am very skeptical that they're going to be able to put enough polish into this to make the console versions of this look even remotely good. I was looking at this and I got flashbacks to the Halo Infinite gameplay that they showed, where it just looked like everything was made of plastic. Everything looks like it's made of plastic in this, and it honestly harkens back to Mass Effect Andromeda, or I've actually seen some PS3 titles that graphically hold up better than what I am seeing on this PS5 AAA title from Square Enix. It's mind-boggling. The hair doesn't move. The environment in the cutscenes does not interact with any of the character models or the vehicles that are driving through. As you can see, this truck will just drive through the grass, and the grass just kind of phases into the tires and phases out. You will see the hair, like I said, it does not move. It'll phase into people's shoulders. Clothing does not move. There are instances where a character will just have his hand all the way through part of his outfit. There'll be parts where the guns will phase into it. This is all basic stuff that in 2021, given a PS5, the current console generation that we're in, there is no reason for these kinds of graphical anomalies to be occurring. It is embarrassing at this point. And I chalk this primarily up to, I have a feeling this game was originally made for PC and they are backporting it to the consoles, which is the same stuff that happened with Cyberpunk, which is, again, is why I'm very, very skeptical that this console release is going to be any good at all. I feel like developers, if they're going to be developing for PC, they need to give up on the dream of being able to backwards port a game properly. If you're making a game for console and then you port it to PC, that's fine. The PC will inevitably be able to handle it much more than a console. There are much more limitations to a console, whereas with a PC, the limitations are only on the user. But yeah, backporting is going to be the death of a lot of console titles, especially this one. I have a feeling that this game is not going to rank very well at all. It will be scathing on the console reviews. I can only imagine the Xbox version is just as bad. I know PlayStation's had some issues with its backports in the past over the Xbox, because I know Xbox plays a little bit better with PC-made games, but even still, I can't imagine it being much better. Getting into voiceover and dialogue.
Oh my gosh, this is stunning. I wish you could have seen this, Dad.
Hey, you're Shira, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you believe this landscape? It's so beautiful.
Now, if only we had an internet to post those to.
It's for scientific record.
The voice acting is your standard action stuff with a few caveats. I only played as the female protagonist, and I can honestly say when she's chill, the voice acting is subpar, but as soon as they try to pump any sort of action into her or she starts screaming or grunting, my immersion is instantly broken. She doesn't... I don't know what is going on. I don't know what the director was saying with some of this stuff, but it just doesn't feel like it matches the tone of what's going on. Not to say that she's doing a bad job with whatever direction she's getting. She really lays into those fucking screams, but it just does not feel like it makes sense, and it is very immersion breaking. And speaking of immersion breaking, every single cutscene that I went through on this PS5 version was riddled with audio and graphical bugs. The tracks don't sync up with the mouths. There will be stuttering during the ends of cutscenes. You'll hear words either repeat or entire sentences get cut off because the audio just is not in sync with what is going on the screen.
Hell? Your man was wounded! That's better that way! Don't struggle! Go, go, go!
How long has it been?
What?
This war, how fucking long?
Who knows? Since before I was born!
That's fucking impossible!
Come on, open the goddamn gates! And move! Hold tight! Almost there! Almost there!
Almost where? Where are you taking us? It's
What
supposed
the
to
hell
be...
is the matter with you? You just wake up or something?
Cryo! I just...
Well, let me catch you up real quick. That paradise you Outriders promised us, guess what we've got instead? Goddamn alien storms! No shelter, no food, just kicked to the curb like exiles while your ECA pals got fat in their bunker. Bullshit! It wasn't like that. We lost electronics. We could have left you all to rot in your cryo pod, but we didn't. We saved you, ungrateful. How many times did I tell you to shut up?
Again, this was only on the console version. The PC version, I didn't notice any issues with the audio desyncs or any of these graphical issues that I was having on the console version. The game run much more smoothly on a technical standpoint. It actually looked fairly decent on PC, if I'm being real with you. This was on a 1070 overclock with a 9700K processor, 32 gigs of RAM, and all settings maxed out as high as they would allow me to go. What I will say with the PC version of the game, though, is that there are some optimization issues that I can see as far as the frame rate goes. In the tutorial segments, I was getting a healthy 110-ish frames, but then as soon as I went into mainline game and into some of the fight rooms that they set you up in, frames would drop anywhere to 50 to 40, sometimes even down to 30. So optimization on that aspect is not there. This is something I do think they can fix before release, or at least I hope they can patch it shortly after release. But it was nothing game-breaking that I saw. Yes, the frame rate drops were noticeable, but it wasn't any micro-stuttering. There wasn't anything that was actually drawing me out of the experience when I was in combat. What did draw me out of the experience while I was in combat, though, is how the AI behaves. A lot of people were complaining that Cyberpunk AI was some of the worst that they have seen, even if it was CDPR's best AI that they've made. This game's AI is actually atrociously bad. It takes cover shooter AI and then gives a character that has way more mobility than you've ever seen in a cover shooter, and they just don't know how to handle it. Sometimes enemies will just walk directly past you. Sometimes they will stand behind a corner still looking over top of the barrier as you walk behind them and shotgun them in the back. Sometimes you will slow-mo them and they will just phase through whatever barriers that you are having. Now, I have talked to a few other people that have played it, and the way these areas are set up, there are kill rooms. You have to kill every enemy in the room to be able to progress. And there have been some instances from people that I've talked to where enemies will phase into walls or surfaces and they will be unable to kill them, forcing them to restart the game and refight the kill room. This is unacceptable. If you are going to have an objective where if you're going to have a kill room where the objective is to kill every enemy in that room and you're not going to allow the player to run past or force through anything, then you need to get your AI clipping under control. You need to get your environmental clipping under control and make it so that every enemy is killable. If they go out of bounds, drop them to death. You need to do something so that people do not have to restart this game. Restarting a game is probably the worst offense that a game can have. Anything that forces a player to either to stop playing in any capacity is unacceptable, especially in the current console generation that we're in. Like I said, I did not have this issue, but I do know of a few people that did. And lastly, let's talk about the game itself. While the technical implications of the console, I think, are egregious enough, I don't think that matters too much, just because I don't think this game has enough substance to actually warrant a playthrough to begin with. And let me explain before you go clicking off, because I know that there's a lot of people excited about this game. A lot of people are really enjoying the demo, especially the PC players that I've talked to. But think of longevity, and let me kind of give you a synopsis. First off, the tutorial is probably one of the worst tutorials I have seen in a video game, period. This is one of the most broken up tutorial systems that I've seen. It is literally, you start up, you walk to point A, talk to person, walk to point B, target practice, walk to point A again, talk to person, walk to point C, talk to person. And this is all supposed to be like world building, like lore set up, all of that stuff. But the way it's all presented, it feels very static. It feels disjointed. Every time you go and talk to the person, this camera like cuts away. They're not like in-game cutscenes. They are like specifically like rendered out cutscenes. So it almost has like a mini load screen in between each of these conversations. On top of that, there are ways of dealing with teaching a player new game mechanics other than putting them through a shooting trial, or having them run across a field, or, hey, this is a ledge, why don't you vault over it? Like, you can get more creative. And I understand this is not something where the story is going to be that big of a selling point. I can tell that already. Like I said, it's generic Space Shooter X. Story doesn't matter. We want the action. And this game makes it so difficult for you to actually get to the, what I would consider only redeeming part of this game. I almost put the controller down during the tutorial because it just did not grab me. It did not engage me. I was tired of being broken up every 5 seconds to go into a cutscene where they could have very easily just lumped all of those cutscenes together, threw you into a kill room, and called it a day. They tried to supplement this, like, storytelling system with little bits of moving, and it just elongated an already painful experience in my book. And even once you get into actually shooting and that, the game doesn't fully unlock until you get your powers, and that is the even more painful of the process, because getting through the combat stuff in the tutorial, it feels bad, man. Like, whenever you do not have a power system going that the game is built around, and it's left to its bare bones shooting mechanics, it is just rough. It is very, very rough. You see the glaring flaws in the AI. You see the glaring flaws in the cover system, which honestly, after I started getting my powers, I completely went away from the cover system altogether. The only time I would duck behind cover was when I was reloading, and that was rare. I would rather just tank things most of the time because the cover system felt so disjointed. It felt like you were clicking into a spot and then clicking off of it. It did not feel clean. It did not feel smooth. I know it's inspired by Gears of War, but Gears of War is the cover system shooter, and this just did not feel up to par with that. It felt like an aspect that was thrown in last minute, and they didn't really put much thought into. The only time I could see this actually being useful is if you pick the sniper class, which I did not play. I only played the trickster class. So mobility was my benefit, so maybe that was why I didn't enjoy the cover shooting that much. But once you get through the painful tutorial, how does the game play after that? Well, action-wise, it's fun. I will give it that the movement, the powers, all of that, they do flow very well. I was enjoying going through and massacring rooms full of enemies, but at the end of the day, that is all this game is going to be. I can tell from the get-go that this is going to be a shallow gaming experience, and I do not feel it is worth a AAA full price. What's going to happen is you're going to have a hub world. You're going to go in, talk to somebody, get a mission. It's going to send you to one of the exits to this hub world. You're going to go through a loading screen and a cutscene. It's going to load you up into a open world type thing, but it's not really an open world. It's just like a little track to get you to the mission area that's full of like several different kill rooms. And then once you get there, another door, another cutscene, another load screen, and then you just have this room full of enemies that you fight. That is going to be your gameplay loop. And if that is okay, so be it. But I feel like this is an archaic way of doing this, especially considering we have multiple looter shooters that are fairly open world. Even with like some restrictions, they could have very easily had all of these like areas connected with just a door open. Or like, say you have your hub world, you go to your exit, it does your loading screen, cutscene, whatnot, but then after that each part is connected from there on out. Every single thing in this game makes it feel like it doesn't want you to get to the combat of the game, which is what it is built around. There are so many cutscenes, there are so many load screens. It gets painful how much the immersion is broken, how much the flow of the game is broken just by poor optimization on the fact that there's nothing connected. Everything feels disjointed. And on top of that, I saw very few variations in what to expect. All the rooms were very much the same, and I know this is only the demo and more areas are to come, but fighting through, I felt like once I fought through one room, I fought through them all. And the bosses are nothing to write home about thus far. They're all other altered with basically the same gimmick. Oh, this one has a fire AoE that will follow you. Oh, this one has an ice AoE that has multiple little patches that you freeze up in if you stand. It's all looking at circles on the ground and shooting bad guys. At the end of the day, that is what you're going to get from Outriders. And if that is something that you think you will enjoy, so be it. Lastly, I want to get to the progression systems. The armor and weapons seem like your standard looter shooter type stuff. I don't know how much they're going to actually impact the game. I've heard that there's a mod system where you can actually modify your weapons. I heard that the weapons are actually going to interact with your builds. That is all well and good. I think that's a step in the right direction because the skill tree is arguably the worst skill tree I've seen in one of these types of games. They very easily could have just locked all of this stuff behind a static level up system where you just get stat boosts for leveling, because this game does have that, but then it also has a skill tree where every single node on it is just percent increase to damage, percent increase to guns, percent increase to health, percent increase to shields, percent increase to movement. There's no interaction with any of these nodes on the skill tree. You are not going to actually feel an impact from any of these nodes. It's not going to be like, oh, I'm going to take the top skill tree and it's going to completely change how I play the game. No, that's not how this is going to work. Each one of these, they're basically just stat modifiers. You're just going to boost a stat that you feel like you have more fun with, whether it be your powers, your guns, or your movement, or whatever. The skill trees are weak. They are one of the weaker aspects of an already weak game. When I see skill trees, I want to see stuff that actually interacts with how I'm going to play. Like a crit skill tree, where every time you get a headshot, your movement speed increases, instead of just giving me a flat movement speed increase. Or every time you slow an enemy down, your gun damage goes up. That would have been cool. Or every time your abilities are on cooldown and you get a kill, your cooldowns go up. That way you can like play a hyper-aggressive ability-based play style where you're trying to constantly get those abilities recharged faster. None of that is in this game. It is all just flat stat increases. Even the end nodes of these skill trees are just flat stat increases. It is actually mind-boggling how a company can get away thinking that players are going to accept this when there are looter shooters out there that have already done this skill tree system significantly better. So, do I recommend Outriders? In its current state, no. I would never recommend it on PS5 because I do not think they're going to be able to patch this game into a point where it is going to be technically sound. Like I said, I don't know about the Xbox, but I would assume all console versions of this game are going to be botched. I do not think this is going to be a console game. If you are going to play this game, please get it on PC, but take into consideration everything I've told you today because I do not feel that this game is going to be worth a full price. I think that at the end of the day, I would struggle to even put this on a like shallow sale. Like I would say probably $30 tops for this game if it ships in its current state, but only time will tell. The game comes out on April Fool's Day, April 1st. Hopefully this game isn't as big of a joke as the day that its release is. Much love, Tenna Crew. Take care. I'll see you tomorrow.